is the rhythm of the Get It Now era. The real-time revolution. Never before have we expected more, faster. Every interaction, every transaction, transformed to give you convenience, choice, and certainty. We all need to meet these demands without ever compromising security and trust. With new levels of transparency, making it easier to move new forms of value. Connecting people and places that haven't been reached before. Harnessing the potential of new technologies. With Swift at your fingertips, you have all the tools you need to transform all types of transaction, creating a seamless digital experience for your customers on a platform with the highest standards of security and resilience. Today and tomorrow. Let's shape the future of finance together.
Good morning or good afternoon to you, and welcome to this live event, Countdown to ISO 222. Are you ready for CBPR Plus? With only 1 year to go until the November 25 deadline for payment instructions, and to learn more about how we can be ready as an industry, we're hosting 2 leading experts today to discover their top lessons on their journey to ISO 222 adoption. So today we'll hear firsthand about the benefits global financial institutions are already experiencing from ISO 222, the richer and more structured data, and gain actionable insights to help you and your team prepare for the end of coexistence. I am Nicolas Stuckens, Swift's head of ISO 222 adoption, and with me on this call today, I am very pleased to host Albert Abuto, manager of payment operations at Diamond Trust Bank, and Girish Raju, Director for Domestic Payable at Standard Chartered. Gentlemen, welcome. Can we spend a bit of time talking about your journey to ISO 222, and can I ask each of you to give a quick summary of where you are in your ISO 222 migration journey? Maybe starting with you, Albert.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're watching us from. My name is Albert Abuto, Manager Payments Operations at Diamond Trust Bank, Kenya Limited. Apart from that, I also represent the bank in Kenya Swift User Group, and I've had a chance to serve as a Secretary General for 2 consecutive terms. Talking about our journey to this point, as DTB, we went live in 2023 March, where we actually were able to send and receive MX standard messages. So far, we've done that successfully, not only for cross-border, but also for domestic payments. We've been able to translate most of our messages, category 1, category 2, and category 9. Of course, we're still working on a bit of reporting, which we intend to complete by at least first quarter of next year. So, Nicholas, that's where we are, and the viewers, that's where we are as a bank.
And Girish, what about Standard Chartered?
First of all, thank you, Nicholas, for the invite. From a Standard Chartered perspective, we are present in more than 40 markets, certainly a strong presence in the emerging markets. As of now, we are in the middle of the ISO migration journey. At the moment, when it comes to cross-border payments, as of October, 38% of our cross-border payments is already on the FinPlus network in an ISO native format. Of course, we are gradually increasing this by month. By end of next year, we are expected to hit this 100%, right? Especially for these core payment messages, i.e. PAN and the PAX messages alone. It is quite possible that towards the tail end of this journey, there may be some markets which are low volume markets or low critical markets where we may have to adopt or look for alternative plans, and the discussions are already ongoing on that context.
Thank you. And what is interesting with having the two of you is that your two organizations have a business relationship with each other. So can you speak a little bit about that, Girish, and describe what types of services you provide?
Certainly. So SEB is the correspondent bank for DTB, and we clear the payments in four major currencies, predominantly in Europe and US, also in Japan. We offer services to treasury solutions and FX. So in relation to ISO 2022, DTB is sending us instructions in PAX 8, PAX 9 format. Having said, on our side, our systems are lined up such a way that these instructions can be received and processed end to end without in a native format without any sort of data truncation or data manipulation. Additionally, DTB can also receive from us real-time payment status reports, acknowledgement, rejects, returns in the native format, so that DTB can also benefit from increased visibility and tracking capabilities. They could also automate the return and the reject process, bringing in efficiencies on both sides. Nicholas.
Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about that transition period and the challenges linked to the coexistence. So, Albert, you mentioned that your bank has already completed its adoption of ISO 222 for payment instructions back in 2023. How did you do that in such a short time frame, and what was the decisive factor on your end to go so fast?
Okay. Okay, Nicholas. As a bank, we really wanted to be ready before November 2025. So then we didn't want to wait or take longer into trying to implement and adopting ISO 222 messages. So what we did was we worked very closely with our vendors. We got them to have some kind of a stand-up meeting where then we could go through the guidelines on my Swift. Actually, my Swift really helped us a lot because then we were able to look at the guidelines, and then, of course, when it came to testing, we were ready or we were able to test our messages as we tried them out. Secondly, we worked also close with our subsidiaries, that's in Uganda and Tanzania, where we initiated test messages to them. They initiated test messages to us. So we were then able to really see where we were as a bank at that time. So I want to say that's what really informed our decision to go early because we didn't want the stress of last minute. And with this, I think we were able to then pick a lot of challenges ahead of even go live. So that's really what we looked at, and that's what really informed our decision.
Thanks. Thank you for that. And indeed, My Standards is providing increased of fantastic resources supporting the capability, the industry. Girish, on your end, Standard Chartered is live with ISO 222 in many markets you mentioned, but in some other markets you are still in transition phase. What advice would you give to banks in terms of how to approach this phase?
See, the coexistence phase is a reality, and of course, it will come to end by next year. Now that the focus for November 22 is really on the payment initiation and clearing settlement messages, financial institutions can start to adopt ISO natively, and of course, very importantly, scale up the capability across the market footprint. My advice, basis our own experiences, whatever is your business goal, start making ISO 2022 as your strategy. Prioritize your business cases with examples that could offer benefits to your own organization and for your clients. Focus on channel readiness. Start engaging your clients and your partners and plan for ISO adoption journey. Focus on the impacted clients, right? Because not every client is impacted as part of this migration by customer segment and use cases. Revisit your orchestration layer, ensure that you are capable of electronically capturing rich information. Revisit your processing capability. Very importantly, figure out what you should do as part of your FCC controls, financial crime and controls, the system readiness to handle with the rich information. So also as while we have to go through this coexistence period, there is also a room or a chance for financial institutions to start looking at quick benefits, considering short term as well as long term. Perhaps in a short run, it could be increase in the STP rates, opportunity to tune up the operation excellence, possible automation that they could bring in with a rollout of PAX 2 and PAX 4 messages. Also adoption of the case managers if they will, and potentially tuning their artificial intelligence, artificial auto repair or learning tool, whatever they have, in order to spike up the STP rates. So I believe if the question is really to figure out when these financial institutions who are not started the journey should act, the time is really now, and they should act swiftly.
Yeah, indeed, because there's a lot to achieve from what you said there, and it's a long journey for organizations if they have not already started. Did you experience any specific challenges linked to the coexistence, or have any of these challenges impacted your ability to see and experience some of the benefits that you described?
Yeah, so certainly when the migration is of this scale and spans over 2-3 years, there will be several challenges, not just for SCB but for all the banks out there. While we are in the midst of this migration program, we also have to be mindful that there is a parallel initiative from payment market infrastructures, so to say the HVPS Plus, where several payment market infrastructures are also rolling out the ISO for their domestic rails. We saw a few markets in year 23, same in 24. There are 15 more markets lining up in year 25, Fedwire being a prominent one. So there is a kind of overlapping between HVPS versus CBPR plus initiative. In that context, the challenges are really managing two systems during the transition is kind of a barrier. Adoption timelines between CBPR plus versus HVPS plus, while HVPS plus is largely regulatory in nature, so it's a must do. Client experience may be impacted as well, because if they are using the service in multi-market, of course the behavior may be different. There will be certain interoperability challenges between cross-border versus domestic. And there will be massive undertaking when it comes to mapping of the data between MX versus MT and the properties that you may have. Testing will become a puzzle because you end up having multiple systems. So there will be tons of challenges which financial institutions like us will have to do with, and very importantly, the likelihood of data loss, data truncation, breach in the travel rules. All that has to be considered during this coexistence phase, so that banks can carefully evaluate, the approach towards ISO readiness.
Yeah, and I think that is indeed one of the primary driver also not to extend this coexistence beyond November 25. Let's talk a little bit about the operational and technical challenges or technical implications of moving to ISO 222. So, Albert, I think you described that already. You worked with your vendor. So what type of technical upgrades or changes to your core banking systems were made and were most crucial to implement ISO 222? And how did you ensure you were ready to handle the more complex and structured data?
Okay, first, we really had to interrogate our core banking system just to ensure then we were able to receive or effectively consume ISO standard messages. Second, we also needed to ensure that as we are able to consume, then we should also be able to send out MX standard messages. So then we really had to work on the translation rules, the mapping rules, which we really worked closely with our vendors just to try and see what failed then becomes an element in PAX 008, for instance. So there was a bit of back and forth here and there, because of course, in such kind of a journey, there's a lot of testing that takes place. You get it right, but you don't stop there until you get it. You get it wrong, but you don't stop there until you get it right. So there were those that really impacted our testing during that period. But eventually, we were able to overcome that. And the changes that were necessary from our core banking system, we also worked with the vendors just to make sure whatever we needed for a successful translation or for a successful ISO standard messages was then effected from the technical side. So I would say at the end of all this, we were able then to overcome all the challenges that were there. And even after, when we went live, we also had to deal with one or two post go live issues that, of course, working closely with our vendors, then we were able to sort out. And I can confidently say or report at this point that we've been able then to tackle all the challenges that we had during testing period and, of course, post go live. So right now, I can say we are okay, we are comfortable sending out IMX messages, and we are comfortable receiving them to our backend office.
Thank you. And this is indeed very important, and it comes a lot from the organizations that have already completed or migrated to ISO 222, either partly or totally, is that waiting to the last minute is a very risky strategy, because there is always a lot of back and forth and testing and learning, and perhaps you roll back and you improve something, and then you try again. So give your time give yourself the time to actually make some of these changes and adjustment is important. So let's talk a little bit about the customer implications of that as well, because obviously there are important implications there. And how did you communicate the transition to ISO 222 to your customers? How did you manage customer expectation during that process? Perhaps, Girish, over to you.
Yeah, certainly I can explain our situation. Yeah, so we periodically broadcast all our ISO activities to the frontline teams or to the clients via frontline teams, so to say, or the regional teams. We also have an dedicated team for effective communication and for engagements. We have built up sizable collaterals already on a dedicated ISO website for SCP, where you can our clients can also figure out our capabilities, our roadmap. They can also download usage guidelines, go through the training materials, and so on and so forth. We also prepared extensive training materials for our clients, like the YouTube training videos across all the payments message types in scope for November 25. It's of course widely available to the public, not just for our clients. So anybody in this call who are interested, they can also go through that video. We do have bilateral engagement with our clients. So far, we've done more than 400 sessions, including several webinars. As part of this journey, we have also trained our own internal colleagues on amplification of the ISO knowledge, so that if they are confronted with the client queries, they are confident enough to reply back to them. Recently, we are also working on an AI-based chatbot, so that client can of course use it, query the tool with kind of fixed answers, which they can also use it. I guess this was showcased in Cyboss recently. So whatever it is, our continuous journey will be to engage clients on a proactive basis. Largely so far, we have been engaging our FI clients, but I think the focus for year 2025 and from now onwards will be more towards corporate clients, because on one side we are building the pipeline, other side, if corporate clients do not understand what it really means and capable of outputting the rich info, it is basically rendered kind of useless. So focus will be really to ensure and engage corporate clients are fully informed of our migration journey and the impact.
And on your side, Albert, have you already engaged with corporate clients or retail clients?
Yes, we did. In fact, at inception, before go live, we also had to train our internal staff just to what to expect, because we knew customers are very informed now, and they were bound to ask questions. So then we wanted a situation where when a customer then approaches any of our branches, then they are well equipped to actually guide the customer or even talk about the new change that was coming. So first, we started by engaging our internal customers, who are our branch front office. Second, then we moved to the corporate clients, where we also share the information of what to expect. For instance, our customers generally were used to the empty standard messages. So most of them really understood And in fact, they could point out that field 50K then becomes the ordering customer. That's where they expect to see their names at. Now then we had to tell them there was going to be change in vocabulary. What you are referring to as ordering customer then becomes data. Of course, there were questions here and there. How am I data? This person, I don't know him. I'm just helping him out. So there are those questions, but then we had to explain to them, well, this was just a vocabulary that was used so that all the players speak the same language. So that was there. And then, of course, at the tail end, we had to do some kind of communication to the customers and public at large that as D2B we were going to migrate, and these were the changes that you would expect, where we actually even shared a side-by-side comparison between maybe MT103 and a PAX 008. So I think with this kind of information then, when the customer got to see their Swift advice of confirmation, they were able to relate. They were able to relate, and there was little resistance because at least we informed them fund. So yeah, we've been able to engage all our customers. We were able to engage our branches so that by 2023 March, our branches were well informed, our customers were well informed, so that it did not really come as a shocker when then we moved to ISO standard messages. That's how we handled it.
And Girish, specifically with regard to your FI clients, what are you telling them with regard to the importance of being ready for November 25?
I think the message always changes. In the initial stage, clients were also keen to understand what it means, not the tier one clients, but otherwise what it means for them. We also support several bilateral codes that are mutually agreed with our clients. So they are keen to understand when banks migrate from MT to MX, what are the default placeholders for such bilateral code words across multiple products that we support. The interesting questions are always when the payments goes to a different corridor, what are the requirements around regulatory reporting, purpose of payment, category purpose, when should they use service level, when should they use local instrument, and of course some confusions around usage of instruction for creator agent versus instruction for next agent, and so on and so forth. So but now I think that situation is changing quite slowly, and the FI community is well engaged. They understand the nuances of ISO, whether it is a pain or the PAX. So now we have also published our own guidelines for them to support through this journey. Clients can very well look into these elements. However, the focus is now slowly shifting towards what after the payments. Can we start looking at the statements and the reports? Are you ready? When will you be? And so on and so forth. So that is what we've been working out. And there is a huge pipeline of the demand coming from FI community on that aspect.
Okay. And I think perhaps at this stage it would be good to indeed say a little bit more about this end of coexistence for payment instructions in November 25 and what it really means. So concretely, what it means is that as of the 22nd of November 25, which is the date of the standards release, we end the coexistence period for cross-border payments instructions. And so at that moment, all payment instructions must be exchanged in ISO 222 format, and we will no longer allow the exchange of FIN payment instructions between financial institutions on the network. And we do this because instructions convey a systemic importance to the end-to-end interoperability between financial institutions and payment market infrastructure, and it is important indeed to preserve the data end-to-end and to finish the coexistence. Now, that being said, there is a risk by taking a firm stance like that some institutions who maybe are a bit late in their program would not be in a position to send and receive payments in ISO format and may not be in a position to make payments anymore after November 25. So Swift will provide some short-term last resort contingency capabilities, and these are meant to provide business continuity targeted at supporting institutions that are no longer that are late to complete their ISO adoption, while still allowing payments to flow. And so they're not meant to be alternative to ISO adoption, and they're not meant to be long-term solutions. And as you can see on the slide that will appear on the screen, is that there are a number of messages which will no longer be supported, and you can find them on the right-hand side column. And so any attempt to send these messages will result in an hack from the network. But some messages, and the most common ones, like the MT103 and 202, that you can find in the left-hand side column, will be subject to contingency processing, which means that we will concretely convert these messages into their ISO 222 equivalent. Now, in order to do that, we also need to impose additional FIN validation rules, because there are different data requirements, and it's not always possible to convert a FIN message into an ISO equivalent, especially if some of the mandatory data elements are not present in the original FIN message. So we will convert these messages, but only if these messages adhere to the additional FIN validation rules. So it is important to understand that there are significant operational implications of doing this, and that conversion, an organization that wants to leverage that conversion service should expect to face messages nacked, especially if they don't adhere to the additional FIN validation, and will face additional manual intervention and possibly delays and other types of business implications. And obviously, they will miss out on the value of the structured and rich data that ISO brings. In the middle of the slide, you can also see what we call inflow translation, which is an existing capability that we have been provided as of March 2023. We will continue to provide that capability so that banks who also need to process MTs on the receiving side can continue to leverage this inflow translation capability. But I just want to make sure that we stress that these are temporary solutions. The priority for the community remains to adopt ISO 222 natively. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the benefits of ISO 222, because I think there's quite a lot of things and learning that you can share with us. Girish, as a result of the upgrades that you have made and the move to ISO 222, how have you seen increase in customer satisfaction? And can you share some specific example with us?
Yeah, see, Nicholas, achieving full benefits may still take time, and of course, we have a lot more ground to cover. But having known that our systems are capable of handling, payment instructions, clearing settlement messages in native format for several of the markets, what we noticed is, as part of the ISO rollout, there are dedicated message types for returns and rejects, acknowledgements for the cancellations, positive or negative, all that are possible. So with the return and the rejects, it is possible for us to report back to our client the exact reason, the status codes, with which, of course, it will be imperative for client the reason for rejection, and of course, they can course correct the instruction and then send back to us, bringing in efficiency on both sides. This is what we also notice at the DTP side. The second one is, aligning to the industry demands for the cross-border payments. It is now a known phenomenon that wherever there is in cross-border instance corridors, it is possible to now use ISO as messaging standards. We make use of certain data elements, especially the likes of service codes, local instruments, to ensure that the destination market settle payments through the fast rails. With the known solution that we have put in place so far, we also notice an increase in the STP rates month on month by 3 to 5%. The hit rate and the sanction screening of false alerts, I would so to say, they have come down significantly thanks to the rich data quality, right? So we noticed somewhere around 13 to 14% reduction quarter on quarter. But I believe the full benefits will take time because we are only done with 38 to 40% of the conversion in the ISO native format. But I believe Albert can share more meaningful information or insight because they are 100% compliance in terms of ISO readiness.
Girish, thank you for that. I think as DTB or DTB customers are already reaping the benefits of ISO standard messages. Before ISO standard came into effect, there used to be some kind of delays. Yeah, you send a transfer, you send an MT103 today, but of course there will be a lot of questions in the life or in the chain of this transaction before it hits the ultimate beneficiary bank. So I want to believe, since right now there's more structured data, and of course there's more information that financial institutions are providing. Now with this, there's so much elimination of the back and forth, because what you would ordinarily ask is already provided. I would also speak to this in terms of incoming payments. I think if we were to compare 2022 and 2023, those 2 years side by side, you'll realize that our queries, or let me say compliance issues and sanction screening, we've seen a reduction of up to 50%. Because before, when we're using MT103 messages, whenever we received incoming messages, you realize the data was not so sufficient. But then ISO 2022 messages provides, the customers provides the financial institutions with the room to provide as much information as possible, such that when this information gets to our AML team or sanction screening, then it's a straight-through process. The questions that they would ordinarily ask cease to exist. And I want to believe at 2025 November, when most of the banks, or let me say all the banks, shall have moved to ISO standard messages, then we would even report a lower STP friction rates. Because I want to believe if all the banks working together and to provide as much information as possible, then even STP rates should really go further. And that's why then I would encourage all the banks that are still in this journey, all the banks that are still starting this journey, let's work together. Let's work as a team so that our customers benefit and we reduce friction as possible.
Thank you for that. And it's indeed very, very important that, reduced false positive in sanction screening is one of the benefits that typically is mentioned first. But it's great to hear from you, because we've not really heard customers reporting, concrete statistics on the reduction that they have faced. So 50% is a significant number, and I'm sure that one that would appeal to a lot of banks, especially people involved in sanction screening. I'm looking at the timing. We have one more point that I'd like to ask both of you is, looking forward, we hear a lot of banks talking about November 25 as the end of coexistence. We hear a lot of banks actually talking about November 25 being the beginning of a new era where everyone is actually exchanging payments in ISO 222. So what is the one benefit that you look forward more when we are all then on ISO rails?
If I may go first, Girish. One of the benefits that we hope to see is in terms of settlement. Settlement, most of the customers, when they send money, they expect the settlements to happen as fast as possible. We have seen instances when settlements do not take place as fast as possible, where customers have had to even face demurrage charges. Now, this can be reduced and should be reduced. If all banks then comply, then I think this would be a direct benefit to our customers. It would even reduce pain for us as financial institutions, because then we would really not need to raise queries, because the time of raising queries will be wiped out by the fact that all the information is provided. So I think one direct benefit then I would speak of is that our customers will get more satisfaction as and when they initiate their payments. Second, as a bank or as financial institutions, we'll also be able to serve our customers well. There'll be less queries coming our way. That energy and time will be redirected to some other functions of the bank.
So thank you, Albert, for that.
Girish, on your side,
on my
anything
side,
you'd like to add?
yeah. So see, as we know that towards tail end of year 2025, the major clearing systems, on especially for the RTGS, will also be on ISO. The expectation is that more than 90% of the wire transactions will be on ISO rails. This gives us a great opportunity in terms of interoperability of the payments. It's cross-border settled over RTGS rails and vice versa. That apart, because of the ability to carry rich information end to end, It also open up avenues for us to do settlement over other systems, usage of ISO as a common language, opportunities for PSPs to plug into other systems, other rails, other than the classical payment rails, and so on and so forth. So the use cases, the emerging benefits for ISO will be huge, but again depends on how community is going to explore and use it over a period of next couple of years.
Mhm. Great. Let me turn to the audience for questions because we have a couple that came in. We have one question from Chris here. And Chris is saying, I'd be interested to understand how DTB and Standard Chartered are managing the difference between market guidelines. For example, the support in CGI MP for hybrid addresses before they are accepted in CBPR Plus in November 25. So it's a very specific question. Does anyone feel how they want to
Okay,
take it?
Nicola, I'll give it a shot. Uh, I think, of course, market infrastructures have their guidelines as well. And if you look at it, most of it is actually borrowed from the global perspective or global guidelines. So then, of course, there are elements that then you'd find, or the issues that you'd find in terms of CBPR plus that may not necessarily be applicable in HVPS plus. So then there has to be some point of conversion between these two. Now, there are areas when whatever is required or an element is made mandatory on a CBPR plus, then may not be mandatory on an HVPS plus. So I think it just calls for looking at this in terms of as a global or at CBPR, what do you have as your guidelines? And as a market infrastructure, then what do you have as the guidelines? I think if you match these two or you conform to whatever is expected, for instance, from the market infrastructure, then there should not be any frictions in terms of this. So it's possible then to work with both. You only need to know when to use what and when not to use the other issue.
Girish, would you like to add something?
Yes, I thought the question is more on interoperability between CGI versus the CBPR plus. We understand the definitive gaps between the two variants. So our approach is a bit conservative to start off with. What we have done is, of course, corporate clients especially can use the CGI variant upload payment instructions either in the older versions, i.e. Payne 01 version 3, even version 2, or they can also adopt version 9 going forward. But when it comes to restricting the data elements in order to ensure that we are doing the right thing in the first phase of the journey, we are restricting the data elements that are also supported in the interback. Like we're not asking clients to populate anything else that we can't support. So the excessive data will be dropped, and then we proceed with what we have in terms of interbank messaging when it comes to transforming those incoming pin 001 to backside or equivalent other messages.
Thanks. And so indeed, there are a number of interoperability issues that are being mentioned and that the industry is facing as we're all adopting ISO 20022, and this is one of them. There are indeed some others with regards to market infrastructures. There is obviously a willingness from the industry to align where possible, but still allow also some liberty and some possibility for the market infrastructure operator to drive its own roadmap in terms of how they want to evolve their own system. So it's going to be increasingly important and interesting going forward to see how the industry manages to continue to evolve the format while also ensuring that there is consistency in the way that the format is increased across the board. There is one more question here from my friend Mike, and I'm not sure it's a question, but more of a prompt for us to say a bit more. It says, FIs should not underestimate the amount of work to switch off from Fin to MX. Girish, you run out of fingers reeling many issues off. So what does Swift currently see as current MX versus Fin rates over the network? And are we confident as an industry that there will be no extension? So maybe let me start by saying indeed that today we see 27% of payment instructions have converted from Fin to ISO 222, which is still a relatively low number, being 1 year short of the end of coexistence. But as we engage with the industry, we hear a lot of the background work that is taking place, and a lot of the organizations that we engage with have confirmed that they will be ramping up the volumes in the coming month. We hear a lot about the end of this quarter, first quarter of 25. Girish, you mentioned that Fedwire is going live in March 25 as well with ISO 222, which is also a big trigger point where the full US markets will be on ISO 222, and we expect to see significant increase. So I can say that as from the feedback we get, yes, the industry feels confident that they will achieve this end of coexistence. But obviously, it's going to be a race. But what about you, gentlemen? What do you feel?
Well, I already told you the numbers. We are ahead of the industry benchmark. We are somewhere around 40% today, and we are pretty confident that we will achieve 100% compliance towards end of next year. And of course, we're also parallelly assessing the contingency plans. Just briefly touched about, but whether we apply or don't apply, that only time can tell.
Sure, I think most of us, I think that's what should be in our line of thought. As an industry, we need to be working towards the 100%. We will continue providing as much information as possible. We'll continue making the ISO standard messages as in terms of data rich as possible, so that, of course, the entire community then can benefit from this. We need DTB to benefit from other financial institutions, and we also need other financial institutions to benefit from DTB. So I think the most important thing, what we should work at as an industry, is just making ISO 20022 MX messages better and better. If we work towards this as an industry, then of course we will achieve that 100% mark.
Great, gentlemen. Thank you for your insight. I think the audience has found this very, very valuable. And thank you for your very encouraging messages, and looking forward to continuing on this ISO 222 journey. So everyone, thank you for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nicolas.
Have a good
Thank you.